Welcome back, everyone. Okay, today we are taking on the absolutely monumental task of mapping out the sprawling, dense, and, let's be honest, emotionally devastating first half of Sarah J. Maas's epic Kingdom of Ash. I mean, there are just so many moving parts, so many different theaters of war, and literally so much heartbreak happening all at once. Let's break this whole shebang down together right here in this explainer, so we can get a crystal clear picture of exactly where every major player is on the board.
But before we dive into the deep end, there is one absolute requirement for today. You've got to check out the link in the description below for the full audiobook. Trust me, to truly grasp the sheer intensity and the raw emotion of this entire epic, experiencing it firsthand is absolutely essential. So make sure you go ahead and click that link.
Okay, here's our roadmap so we don't get lost in the weeds today. First, the captive Firebringer. 2, the war for Terrasen. 3, witches, magic, and word keys. 4, Chol's stand at NEL, and finally number 5, Aelin's fiery rebirth.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the captive Firebringer, surviving Maeve and Cairn. We really need to take a moment and respectfully look at the horrific reality of Aelin's captivity. I mean, she's locked inside a tiny iron box for months, no sunlight, and she's subjected to just brutal physical torture by Cairn. But honestly, the psychological torture from Queen Maeve is almost worse. Maeve literally invades Aelin's mind, creating these hyper-realistic illusions. Imagine being forced to watch your sacred homeland, the ancient staghorn forest of Terrasen, actively burning to ash. Maeve is weaponizing fire, the very element Aelin loves, just to break her spirit. It's incredibly dark. But in all this unimaginable darkness, Aelin isn't entirely alone. We see this brilliant non-verbal lifeline she establishes with Fenris. Remember, Fenris is trapped in his wolf form, forced by a blood oath to literally sit on the sidelines and watch her suffer. Since they can't speak out loud, they invent a blinking code. And the most emotionally devastating part of this whole thing? Fenris repeatedly uses those 4 blinks, meaning I am here, I am with you, to comfort her right before Cairn's hammer falls. It's just this tiny, beautiful little light in absolute darkness.
And then, right when Aelin hits her absolute breaking point, when she truly believes she's going to be locked away forever, the spirit of her mother appears beside her in that suffocating iron box. Her mother asks why she cries, reminds her of her mighty bloodlines, and then delivers this singular, powerful command: "You do not yield." Wow. It triggers such a ferocious surge of willpower that Aelin begins frantically beating on her iron box. Now keep in mind, she is wearing magic-suppressing iron gauntlets, but she physically warps the heavy iron lid with her bare hands. She simply refuses to break. It's an unbelievable reminder of how sheer willpower can literally bend iron.
Moving up north, we hit Section 2, the war for Terrasen, holding the line.
So, when we pan the narrative map up north to Terrasen, the desperation is just obvious. On one hand, you have politicians like Lord Darrow arguing over petty legal loopholes to undermine Alan's rule. You've got Lysandra constantly exhausting herself, shape-shifting to pose as Alan just to keep the army's morale afloat. And then, you look at the actual numbers on the ground, and they are staggering. Terrasen has a cobbled-together force of maybe 25,000 troops. Marching directly for them, 50,000 of Irwan's Velob foot soldiers, led by 5 Velob princes, with airborne venomous Ilkin just shredding through the skies above. Erwan's massive forces are slaughtering their way northward, easily pushing the Bane back yard by bloody yard. Speed and simply holding the line are their only desperate hopes here.
All right, Section 3, Witches, Magic, and Weird Keys, Shifting Alliances.
Operating behind enemy lines, Dorian is, well, he's dealing with a really dark mental state right now. He and Manon are on this massive dual mission to hunt down the hidden Crotchian witches and find that 3rd word key. And they are deliberately making their journey twice as long just to avoid the hunting Yellowlegs covens. But along the way, Dorian's magical arsenal is expanding at a terrifying rate. He can manifest ice, fire, wind, and shockingly, death magic comes to him the easiest. That really makes him fear he's still tainted by the vow. But look at that final point, shape-shifting. Dorian brutally steals this magic by killing the shifting Stygian spider, Serene. And you might be wondering, why does he need it so badly? Because Dorian fully intends to sneak into Morath alone, find the key, and sacrifice himself to forge the lock so Aelin doesn't have to.
Meanwhile, Manon is facing her own massive political struggle trying to win over her great-grandmother Glennis and the Crotchian witches. She literally has to follow these steps perfectly. First, she locates the camp. Then, to prove her loyalty, she actually secretly lures the Yellowlegs there just so she can fight them off in front of the Crotchians. It's a bold move. Ultimately, she has to figure out how to be accepted as queen so she can ignite the eternal flame of war.
Oh, and a totally fun, surprisingly joyful detail confirmed amidst all this heavy tension? Abraxos is officially mated to Astron's wyvern. I mean, it is just a much-needed, bright little bit of happiness in all the dark, right?
Which brings us down south for Section 4, Chal's stand at Niel, a bitter homecoming.
So Chal and Urain arrive at the southern continent hoping to prepare for war, but instead, Chal faces an insufferably stubborn father who completely refuses to look at this horrifying number. 10,000. That is the exact number of Val foot soldiers marching directly for his home, Aniel. The city doesn't have the army to stop them, yet instead of fortifying his city, Chal's father just tosses insults and looks down on Urain, totally oblivious to the reality of the threat. It's so frustrating. Chal is literally forced to stand in front of him and beg him to either evacuate the women and children immediately or swallow his pride and ally with their mortal rivals, the White Fang Mountaineers. The fate of the entire city rests on whether Chal's father can just put his ego aside for 5 minutes.
And finally, the climax, Section 5, Aelin's fiery rebirth, the rescue at Doranel. Okay, so our cadre of Rowan, Lorcan, Gavriel, and Alid have tracked Aelin to this massive Fey army camp outside Doranel. And the entire rescue hinges on Alid brilliantly executing a fake-out, posing as a scorned lover to draw Maeve completely out of the camp. With the camp vulnerable at dawn, let's look at this timeline, because the tension builds second by heart-pounding second. Rowan uses his wind magic to silence the guards, and just begins a 1.5-mile dead sprint through the heart of the enemy camp. Simultaneously, inside the tent, Karen readies the fire for Aelin's most gruesome torture yet. Fenris, knowing Aelin plans to die rather than be enslaved, does the impossible. He sacrifices his own life using sheer willpower to shatter his blood oath to Maeve so he can attack Cairn. This buys Aelin the absolute split second she needs to melt her chains in the fire and sprint blindly out of the camp toward Lorcan.
When Rowan finally reaches her, they can't even break the locks. Aelin traces a wired mark in the moss, and Rowan uses his blood to unlock the iron mask and gauntlets. And then, instantly, Aelin's suppressed magic just explodes into a massive ring of purifying flame. But when the fire actually clears, the cadre sees the true horrific cost of her captivity. Her physical trauma was so severe that Maeve's healers had to give her full skin grafts. Guys, every single one of her iconic, historic scars, on Ovir, the Assassin's Keep, all of it, is entirely erased. She is quite literally a clean slate.
So, that brings us to this huge, lingering question. What will a reborn, completely unscarred Aelin do next with her new blood-sworn companion? Because in this incredibly beautiful, tear-jerking moment right there in the grass, Aelin officially takes a dying Fenris into her own blood oath, saving his life and permanently binding them together. She is free, she is entirely changed, and she finally has her magic back. What in the world is her next move?
Well, if you want to find out, you absolutely cannot stop here. The full audiobook is available right now via the link in the description below. Go ahead and dive straight in to experience the rest of this incredible story firsthand. Thank you so much for hanging out with me as we mapped out this epic explainer, and I will see you all in the next one.